And if you do it in the wrong tone, you will completely offend your patient. So if you have kind of a harsh voice or if you kind of are very stern, that's not the question for you to ask. But if you can soften up your tone, and if you notice how I said it with a very soft and kind of even withdrawn type of communication, that's how you want to ask it, because it's a very penetrating question. And if I did it at this tone and this level, it would come across very offensive to that person. So if you notice, when I get really serious with the patient, I soften up my tone and I talk to them a little more direct, but it's so soft that it's like it's not offensive in any form or fashion. And that's what you've got to do here. You have got to get that person at this point to see that their condition is going to become more problematic. That is one of the most important things with an NRCT person, because they don't think that their condition is going to get worse than it is, because they think it's as worse as it's going to get. And they've already lived with it for 10 years. So if they've already lived with it for 10 years and it's as worse as it's going to get, it's like, why would they start under care? Why would they do something different? They're on 10 different drugs. They're managing it to the best of their degree. The doctor told them this is the best it's going to get. So that's why you've got to really get this person here to see that their condition is going to become more problematic, or their quality of life, they will not be living and living to the fullest extent of what the word living is. And after you get that from them, your next question, and this is your determining question to find out how your consultation went, is, do you feel like at this point you need to do something different? Or do you want to keep doing what you're getting and get the same result? So, at this point, Jill, you have an option. You can keep doing what you're doing and get the same result, or you can do something different. What would you like to do? And apparently, if they say, I want to keep doing what I'm doing, that's when you know that you didn't penetrate enough on your consultation to get them to want a need for change. What happened is you just got them to go through their life story and they didn't actually change. So if that's what they said, I would take it away again. And if I took it away and they didn't reach, I've got a really complicated person there. And if I got such a complicated person that I don't feel like I can get them to want change, then I'm not going to spend, 100 hours trying to get one person to change. There are so many other patients out there who are desiring to have help that it's not worth that one person who's a time waster to continue on. But if that person, once you withdraw, if that person reaches, then you can get that person under care. And that's the important part about it, is getting that person to want you so that they can get help. And once you find out if they are at a point where they want to do something different, then you go through your demand for improvement scale on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being like, I'll do whatever it takes to get this problem handled. I'm sick and tired of living with it. I don't want my life to deteriorate any more than it already has. I want to see if someone can do something. And 1 being, it's not that big of a deal. I'm living with it already. I'm taking all these medications. I'm going to have to live with it forever. Where would you fall on that scale? And for everybody on this conference call, you have to notice that I changed that up a little bit from how it's, it's listed in your consultation form. And the reason for it is I really want to know, where is my person, what are they thinking? What is my patient thinking? Are they still thinking they're going to live with it for the rest of their life? Or are they thinking that they want to do something? So when you look at that 1 to 10 scale, 10 being like, I'm sick and tired of having this. I'm ready for change. I'm hoping somebody will help me. I'll do whatever it takes if there's something that can fix it. And 1 being like, I'm on the medication. It's, it's abating the pain, or it's working on the pain, and I feel like I'm still going to have to live with this forever. Where do you fall on that scale? And so what's going to happen is you're going to get some real numbers from your patients. And so when they give you a real number, anything less than an 8 or an 8 doesn't usually start under care. However, if they're an 8 or a less, one of the things that you have to know is the first thing you've got to handle is time or money a concern. A good 80% of your patients is going to be finances. So if my patient Jill said, well, Christina, I'm only an 8 or a 7, I'd say, let me just ask you a question, Jill. are you a 7 or an 8 because you have concerns about finances? And she'll go, well, yeah. And I go, well, tell me about that. And then here's what they tell you. I've spent so much money at this doctor and that doctor, and I spent, $5,000 just on this one test, and they weren't able to help me. Okay, so basically this person has money. Just so you know, they have some way of getting money. They might be tapped out at the moment, but if they spent, $7, $10, $15,000 trying to get this problem handled, they have money somewhere. That's kind of what you have to know. And if the value is large enough, they'll figure out where to get the money. That's the other thing you have to know. They might not have had $15,000, but they figured out how to get $15,000 for all those other tests. So if they figured it out for all those other tests, if the value is large enough for you, meaning if the value is large enough for them to come see you, they'll do whatever it takes financially. So that's what you have to address here. And so what I would do is I sit back and I say, Jill, so listen, let me ask you this question. Since you spent all that money and you didn't have a result, if I find something that I can truly help you with, can you figure out how to get the finances? Because I'm just going to let you know most patients don't usually have problems handling the finances in our office. However, in your situation, it is going to cost something to get it fixed. What it is at this point, I have no idea because I don't know if you're going to even respond to the treatment. But if you do respond and we are able to help you, the question that still remains is how much do you want the help? And that's, that's such a determining question with these people. So that's the first thing that you have to handle. The second thing you have to handle with them is you have to find out if, especially if it's a woman, if they're like a caretaker, meaning they take care of everybody else and they put themselves last. Because that's what you see with these kind of women. Not all of them, but a good majority of them is they're consistently putting themselves last. And you might have to ask them, are you gaining something from having these conditions? Like, do you get attention for it? I mean, not that you even are aware of it, but do you get some kind of satisfaction by being sick? Well, why would you ask that kind of question, Christina? Well, because I've seen it. I've seen where people, couldn't handle getting well because they didn't have a way to like express the fact that they still needed the attention. But here's the thing, Jill, is if you get better, how much are you going to be able to help your daughter or your granddaughter or your brother or your mother or your father or your sister? And if you're able to help them, how much more are they going to need you in their life? And that's the part you got to get this NRCT person to see, is that they need to shift that attention to another aspect. And if you're feeling well, do you know that happy, well people attract people more? People want to be around people who are excited about life. So if we're able to handle this and you become excited about life, do you know how much attention you're going to attract? And then the last thing that you have to handle with somebody who's just really stuck and they're just a huge caretaker and they put everybody else first and they put themselves last. If the woman has kids, the easiest way I know how to do it is to address the aspect with their children. And what I would do with this type of patient, and I say, Jill, listen, here's the situation. You have kids, right? She goes, yes. And I go, have you ever heard that saying or seen this happen with your kids, that children do what we do, not what we say? And she goes, yeah. And I go, so kids are great observers. They like follow us around and they watch what we do, don't they? And she goes, yes. And I go, exactly. So if you don't address your health and you don't take care of it, what are you demonstrating to your children? And so you can see that that's a very penetrating question, because the whole point of it is to get her to see that she's teaching her children to do the same thing. And so that's the way I ask it the first time and I get a response. And then the second thing I say is, if that's your child, what would you do? Well, I would do whatever it took to get them well. And I go, exactly. You would cut off your arm, you'd cut off your leg, you would do whatever it took to get them well, wouldn't you? And she'll go, yeah. And I go, so why won't you do that for yourself? Well, I don't know, Christina. And I go, well, let's look at it this way, Jill. Who do you want to replace you to take care of your kids? Because the way your health is headed, well, what do you think is going to happen? I don't want anybody to replace me. Well, then what do you think you should do? So your whole goal right there is to get them to see that it kind of stimulates them to move on to having health. And that's the best thing I can tell you to handle as far as those in our CT people that are very complicated. And you've just got to realize, like I said, it doesn't have to be complex as long as you know that the true benefit and the true key is having that patient need you, not the reverse. The whole consultation's questions are geared towards the patient wanting you to be their physician. And then your next step at this point is you're going to explain to them about the meninges and how they compress the nerve. And then you're going to do the education, and then you're going to do the testing. So I wanted to leave a few minutes. Does anybody have any questions in regards to the consultation?
This is Dr. Tashiro in Lakewood, Colorado.
Uh-huh.
So I just joined the program and got a couple questions. One is, how much time should we allot for the consultation and the test? And two, it seems like part of what we deal with this kind of patient is overcoming their skepticism that help might even be available.
Yeah, when they're skeptical, you have to flip that around on them.
Right, but isn't the purpose of the test to erase that by showing them change in the 7-minute test? And wouldn't that eliminate the need for a lot of the convincing or the dialogue and the conversation?
To some degree. But here's the thing is, even if they get some pain relief, you'll find with your inner CT people that they'll go, that's unreal. It's like they've lived, you have to understand, they've lived with the condition so long that if you don't get them to really want the condition gone and you just test them, it's an unreal situation.
Okay.
So you've got to get them to the point of desire to want it before you can even do it.
Okay.
Did that make sense to you?
Good. Yeah, it does.
And I've seen it many times. I have NRCT clients who come in and they go, well, I do the test and they get wetter and they don't even come back. Well, yeah, it's because there wasn't a desire for that patient to get well. And when you did the test and there was relief, it was so surreal to them that they couldn't even have it because they weren't ready to want. They didn't have the want for it. You have to have the want to actually be able to have it.
Yes, right.
And so, especially if they're skeptical, if they come at me like, I'm really skeptical if this is going to work, and, I just sit back with them and I say, listen, here's what I want to do for you, is I understand you being skeptical, and I don't have any problem with that, and, I actually find that a great thing, but one of the things that I have to find out is if I'm able to accept you on as a patient, tell me why I should. You do the reverse flow with them. Because there's no need for most of the time what happens, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, is it Dr. Shapiro?
Sure.
Sure. If you were to sit there and explain to them why they shouldn't be skeptical, does it really help their skepticism?
Deepens it.
Exactly. So instead of sitting there trying to convince them, because that's what you're trying to do at that point is convince them why they shouldn't be skeptical, you don't go in the defensive mode. You go into the offensive mode. You say, listen, I really appreciate you being skeptical, and if I were you and I was in your shoes, I'd be skeptical just as well. But let me find out, if I'm able to help you, why should I take you on as a patient?
Great. That's excellent.
Good. So does anybody else have any other questions? Oh, you asked how much time and how long as far as the consult is concerned.